We are halfway through 2024, and I think we need to take a look at what has happened this year and what are some of the good and some of the bad that has happened in sneaker culture. Let's get into it this time on Fire Footwear. Welcome back to Fire Footwear, everybody. As always, this is your host, Matt Frates, and I hope that this finds you well. I want to thank you for tuning into the show as you do every single week. It means a lot to me how many people show up for this show, and it makes me happy to know that something that I say that is heard by what feels like very few people is meaningful to some of you out there. And it just means the world to me that people listen. It means the world to me that people share. And I just love everything about what we're doing here. I think we need to take a look at 2024 because whereas we're sitting here now, we are halfway through 2024. As I am recording this episode, it is July 2nd, and we are halfway through. The summer is in prime form. And I think we need to take a look at this whole year because once we get halfway through the year, a lot of publications like to basically look at the year and say, what is the sneaker of the year this year? And if you know me, you know that that's not how I roll. You know that I think it's premature to take a look at the sneaker of the year so early in the year when we don't know so many of the things that are coming out. And so I wanted to take a look at this year and sort of look at what has moved the needle, I guess, so to speak, in terms of sneaker culture, because I think there have been a lot of things that have happened. But again, the way that we do sneakers now is that we ingest a shoe, we're very excited for the release, we get it, we maybe wear it or we put it in our closet, and then we're done. We're moving on to the next release. And I think it's very easy to forget about the things that have happened so far this year because as we're sitting here in July, January feels like it's really, really far away. So I think if you're looking at this year, there are a lot of different things that you can hone in on. But I think the first name that I want to talk about is Salehe Bembury. Now, this is something that has come about over the last couple years, and the irony about the success that Salehe Bembury has had is that it's been through Crocs, pretty much. And this year, there has been two things that have been on my radar, the New Balance 1906R release, and of course, the most recent Juniper Guava release, which the Crocs Juniper Guava was their shoe. So I think it's actually really, really awesome. And I think it's interesting when something so far out of the norm becomes big. I know that Crocs were big with hype beasts a couple of years ago, and obviously they're big with younger people. I have a couple of pair of Crocs that I use when I go down to the beach and things like that, and they're great for a house shoe to me. They're great for your everyday wearing when you just need to go down to the store or whatever. But I would never be caught dead in Crocs at any event that actually means something. And Crocs have now become sort of a fashion statement. I don't want to say they're as big as Sambas or anything like that, but I think that Salehe Bembury has made Crocs be a little bit more cooler, and I think they're a little bit different. And so when you see somebody in them, I think visually you know that they're Crocs, but you know that they're a little bit different. And so they're a talking point for a lot of people who like Crocs, but maybe don't know anything about sneakers. And so I think that Salehe Bembury has had a fantastic year. Moving along, this has been a more recent story, but I think Yeezy restocks have been something that has moved the needle and been on everybody's radar because obviously Kanye is no longer a part of Adidas, but when Yeezys come out, people are going to buy them. And Adidas has released a ton of them, a ton of colorways, a ton of models, and they've been at full price. And I did a very, very short or brief bonus episode about that because I thought, man, it would be nice if we could get a little bit of a discount because we're not buying Yeezys because Kanye is with them anymore. And wouldn't you know it, right after I released that episode, we got some of them for 50% off. And if you copped any Yeezys, congrats to you. There was some really iconic colorways, iconic models, and they dumped a lot of the stock on us. And it was kind of neat to see them do that. It brought me back a little bit to when Yeezys were a little bit bigger, when every Yeezy release moved the needle, when you just had to have that Yeezy release. And now it's not that way. Yeezys are something of the past, and we'll never see a moment like that anymore. I don't think we'll see a brand catch fire the way that they did. And it was kind of bringing me back, giving me a little bit of nostalgia. But seeing 50% off, I mean, you have to give Adidas some credit for that. In a similar vein, this has been a year of Kobe's. And I have not been as enamored with Kobe's as many people have. I know that I did the episode on Kobe's and I asked fundamentally whether they're whack in 2024. And I know people had or felt a way about the way that I phrased that. The whole point of that was to question whether Kobe's were as big or as awesome if Kobe Bryant hadn't passed away. And that in no way takes away from Kobe Bryant's memory, that in no way takes away from his legacy. It asks a question of, hey, is it true that Kobe's are as awesome as the mainstream media is telling us or that sneaker culture is telling us? Because when I see a lot of these colorways, it's a mix of old and new, but honestly, a lot of it's very underwhelming. Even I wasn't a big fan recently of the reverse Grinches. I thought they were ugly. And yes, they are a reverse of an iconic colorway, but Kobe's never resonated with me. And maybe that's because I wasn't big into sneakers when Kobe Bryant was playing. I think it more has to do with a personal preference that I just can't wear something that looks like a Kobe casually. I could wear it on the court, no doubt. I could wear it doing athletic endeavors, but I could never style it with a fit. And so I think Kobe's are interesting to watch because they continue to rise, but I think resale prices have come down a little bit, but people are always going to buy them. Even the girl dad ones, non-girl dads were buying them. And you know what? Shout out to you, I guess. If you like them, you like them. If you don't, you don't. It's fine. Everybody can experience sneaker culture the way that they want to. But I think it's been interesting to see how Kobe's have been navigating the space when I'm not so sure that they deserve the praise that they have been getting in 2024. And in the same vein, or in a similar vein, you have KD4s. I don't want to say they're making a reappearance, but certainly they're getting a lot of love. And Kevin Durant is on, or getting close to the sunset of his career. Obviously, he's a great player, going to be a Hall of Famer. His shoe line has had a lot of great entries. The KD17 is whatever at this point. But I think KD4s, you saw the Galaxies re-release. Obviously, the Weathermans, when I was on Sneak Diz podcast, Greg talked about having those and talked about having a story about those. And we're going to see some a little bit down the road. I think they're going to re-release the Nerfs later on in 2024. And that's great. That's another shoe like a Kobe I could never wear casually. But man, there's a lot of people, and even the people in the Instagram chat room that I have, who love KD4s. And this is your year to get them. So if you have an emotional tie to them, this has been something that Nike has been giving you, and you have a chance. And let's talk about Jordan 4s, and specifically Jordan 4 OG colorways. Now, I love this, and Nike and Jordan Brand have been giving us, I think, what we wanted. So let's start early in February. We're talking about the black and red Jordan 4, the reimagined. And the reimagining of them showed them get rid of that Durabuck and give us premium leather. And I love them. You know that I love them. You know that that's my favorite shoe of all time. The execution of the reimagined was perfect. I don't know what your specific pair was like, but my pair, the leather was amazing, buttery, premium. The shoes were comfortable. It's a more superior version than the OG version. I'm sorry. And that's, again, no way disparaging the OG version. I love the OG version. I have it from 2019. It just doesn't hold up the same way. And then, of course, fast forwarding to May, the military 4s. To me, this was on the must cop list. There weren't a lot of them this year, but my goodness, the military 4s were on there. It is so classic because it deviates so much from the black and red and white that we usually see on Jordans in general. That clean white, that clean gray, the military blue. I know that Nike tried to give us this industrial blue crap. It's military blue. It says so on the box, folks. So that's what it is. That was amazing. A great retro. It was available. If you wanted it, you could get it. I was able to get it. And oh, so good. So good. I loved it. I still love it. And I've worn it a lot. And so Jordan 4 OG colorways have gotten a lot of love in 2024. And I am totally here for it. Sticking with the NBA, let's talk about Devin Booker. So Devin Booker is a player that, in my opinion, is very consistent. He's not somebody that, when I look at the NBA, I think that's marketable. He seems like a good dude. He's a great basketball player, obviously. When his career is said and done, maybe be an NBA champion, probably be a Hall of Famer. But the Book 1 released, and he finally got this big moment. And I think overall, the Book 1 is a great shoe. I love the way that it looks. It's very aesthetically pleasing. It looks like a more comfortable, updated Air Force 1. Some of the colorways have been great. I think the blue colorway is outstanding. I liked the Haven colorway, even though the hair on it was something that I could never wear aesthetically. The big issue with the book for me, and I did an episode on this earlier this year, was I thought that the early looks of it and all of these specialized colorways that were made for Devin Booker mixed in with the fact that the Phoenix Suns colorway, the orange one, only released in Florida, kind of a misstep. It took a little bit of the polish off of that shoe. And I don't know what that's going to mean for the shoe long term. We haven't had a lot of colorways come out, but we're going to be approaching the next NBA season very, very shortly. And you have to ask yourself, when is the book 2 going to come out? Is it going to look very similar? Are they going to deviate? And I think that when you look back, or when history looks back on the release of the book 1 and the rollout of the book 1, they're going to see a lot of these missteps. And I think ask a lot of questions of what could have been. Just my opinion. One of the best collaborations of the year to me, at least underrated collaborations, was Undefeated's collaboration of the Terra Humera. And maybe I'm biased because I have that shoe, but damn, that is a well-executed shoe. The white and the brown colorway, the gray on it with the cement, or at least the speckled print on it. Oh, it is a terrific shoe. I've worn it, it's comfortable, it's durable. You had so many colorways that really popped. Of course, the olive colorway, you had the teal colorway, the all black. I think when all is said and done at the end of 2024, if that is not a shoe that is on people's radar for sneaker of the year, we're missing the whole point. Because yeah, Travis's are fine and all the big name designers are fine, but let me tell you something, that Undefeated Terra Humera was straight gas. And it just checks all the boxes. I think it's fantastic. So I could not get away without talking about it because having it in hand, it is terrific. And it was available last I checked on Undefeated. So if you don't have it, go pick it up because it's a great, great release. And speaking of shoes, or at least models that don't get a lot of love, let's talk about the Nike Field General. So the Nike Field General is having a moment in 2024, and I think with the association with Union, and I'm talking about their upcoming release of it, I think that many people are learning about what the Field General is for the first time. And in my opinion, the Nike Field General is a perfect example of a shoe that people should use to research things from the past, because they may be looking at it and thinking, and common sense would say that this is a logical thought, that this is Nike's attempt to combat the Samba. I disagree. I think that this is Nike again trying to do something to move the needle. I don't think that the Field General is the way that they're going to do that, because if you've done any research or you know anything about the shoe, you know that it was made for offensive linemen or football players playing on that old AstroTurf from the 80s and 90s. I mean, it has rubber cleats on the bottom of it. It's like buying a Jordan golf shoe. And I don't know if that's going to hit the way that Nike maybe thinks it's going to hit, or maybe people think that Nike thinks the way that it's going to hit out in the streets. But the Union collaborations look absolutely fire, and Union always puts a lot of effort into their collaborations, and I'm sure that shoe will be worth the money people pay for it. But I think it's an opportunity for you to go learn about a new shoe that a lot of people maybe are learning about for the first time. So I thought that was pretty neat. And speaking of collaborations, we can't get out of here without talking about Trophy Room. Now, every year, Trophy Room has at least one release that people go crazy over, and they went the Jordan 1 Low route. They went with a theme of Michael Jordan's rookie card, and all that's fine. I did an episode about Trophy Room highlighting all the things that they've done over the years, and they've had some terrific releases. The Trophy Room Jordan 5 might be getting close to Grail status for me, even though it's a kind of shoe, when you talk about aesthetics, tough to pull off for me at my body weight, the way that I look, the type of clothes that I normally wear, but my goodness, it was amazing. The Jordan 1 Low to me was low-hanging fruit because Jordan 1s are easy. And in my opinion, they're easy for Marcus Jordan and Trophy Room. They've taken risks before, and I just don't think that they took it this time. But Marcus Jordan made a lot of headlines with all the Larsa Pippen stuff, and all the stuff with backdooring on previous releases, talking about the Jordan 1, the iced out colorway from a couple years back. And I don't know, I'm not into Trophy Room the way that a lot of people are. I think that Marcus Jordan is doing a great job of making sure the history of his dad's career is out on full display. And of course, it's very smart to use sneakers to make a career. but I just don't think that the execution of them is all that great. And that's my opinion. But I think that they're worth mentioning here because a lot of people feel a certain way, and it's a shoe that's going to have a high resale value and all that stuff. And it just is what it is. Moving right along, though, Travis Scott continuing his journey with Nike, of course, with some Jordan 1 lows, just like Trophy Room. But the thing I want to give Travis Scott credit for is Travis Scott did something new, and he created a brand new silhouette, the Jumpman Jack. Now, I think that it has a lot of similarities to other shoes that we've seen, and I'm looking at the Air Yeezy 2 and the Air Tech Challenge 2. But hey, a lot of times imitation is the greatest form of flattery, and so Travis Scott gave us something new at least. And it was new in terms of his vision. It was new in terms of the aesthetics and the things that we're used to seeing, at least on shoes. But I think you could make an argument that it was just an amalgamation of a lot of other shoes that he's dabbled into. Remember, he had the Air Trainer 1, and of course the backward swoosh, and a lot of his branding. And look, there's going to be a lot of colorways of this shoe. People will buy it. It looks neat, and I'm sure some colorways will look great. But in my opinion, Travis Scott, even with a new model, is on kind of a downturn in terms of his sneaker design career, because I just don't believe that he's doing anything innovative anymore. Ever since the Jordan 1 Mocha came out, I think everything has been downhill. I mean, that's going to happen naturally because the law of diminishing returns, of course. But there's been a lot of... It's almost like they're trying to make Travis Scott shoes the new Yeezys, where they're just putting out a tons of colorways and giving people the opportunity to have them, when in my opinion, something like Travis Scott should probably be a little bit more special, but it doesn't mean that they can't right the ship. But to me, Travis Scott is just, okay, it is what it is. And before we get to the last thing, I want to talk about the return of the Jordan 17 Low, specifically the Lightning colorway. The reason that that's important is because, number one, it's a shoe that we haven't seen retroed in a very long time, obviously. The Jordan 17 is a model that probably a lot of sneakerheads aren't familiar with because it's just somewhere in that weird space where Michael wasn't playing for the Bulls and it's after his career. A lot of people feel a certain way about Jordans past a certain point, past the 14 probably. But the Jordan 17 Low coming out with the briefcase and all the adornments that came with it was kind of great for sneaker culture. But here's why it's important. $300 price tag. And that is indicative of where we are in the culture, in that a lot of people have just sort of let these prices go to the point of we haven't realized how incrementally they have been going up and up and up. And so if a low top Jordan 17 is $300, it begs the question, where does that line get drawn? How much more are these prices going to go up? And I only bring that up because I want to open your eyes a little bit to, wow, we just pay these prices without thinking because we love sneakers. And nothing wrong with that at all. But just remember that these companies are incrementally giving us, they're incrementally increasing the price for us, and we're just paying it like sheep without really thinking. So when you decide on a shoe for yourself, make sure 100% that you understand how much it costs and make sure you're doing all the right things financially. But to me, I think the talk of this year is Anthony Edwards and the Anthony Edwards 1, or the AE1. Adidas has been having a really nice year with their basketball line, no doubt. I think that that's because of the AE1. Now, they've obviously had some others, but I think Anthony Edwards has sort of been the tide that rises all the other boats when it comes to Adidas basketball. And he's a very polarizing player to some, but I think that he's magnetizing because he is very electric and very great. But the shoe was really, really great. There's a lot of debate on whether you should wear them with whether you should wear them with jeans and all this other crap. But aesthetically, design-wise, it was a unique shoe. It stood out on the court, but I'm not sure that in 20 years we'll be talking about it. But I think that it has taken basketball shoes by storm this year, and I'll be interested to see how they follow up on it, because Anthony Edwards this year gets to the conference finals. What happens if he isn't as good next year? Nobody knows. So will Adidas be able to harness that and take this moment and take basketball shoes to another level for them? Because Nike has had a chokehold on basketball shoes for a long, long time. But I think now Adidas has the opportunity to move up with Anthony Edwards. And so to a lot of people, this is the sneaker of the year, and I'm not going to debate you on that. That's a personal preference. It's very subjective. I don't believe that it is, as I've said earlier. I think you should be looking at collaborations in other shoes like the undefeated Terra Humera, but Anthony Edwards' shoe is a unique, different basketball shoe, and I think that it was needed in a time where it felt like a lot of basketball shoes, player editions, things like this, signature sneakers have kind of become a little bit stagnant, and so I think it was worth your time. But before we get into the end of the episode, let's get into the release of the week. Release of the week, where I like to highlight a shoe that catches my eye. It's not always hype. Sometimes it is. It's just a shoe that I think that you should know about. Normally, we stray away from Jordans and Dunks and things like that. I mean, obviously, we've talked about them before. But this week, I think I want to highlight a women's release, the Air Jordan 1 High OG First in Flight. And the reason why I want to highlight it, obviously, is because you can't go wrong with Carolina Blue. And yes, it looks very similar or has a very similar aesthetic to the Obsidian colorway from 2019, which is one of my favorite Jordan 1s in my collection. And it's going to retail for like $180. I don't know if Nike and Sneakers is going to give you the women's size run all the way through, the full size run, but it's a fire shoe. So if they limit the run, I think that if you have smaller feet, you should go for it. If you don't have anything Carolina Blue in your collection, this is really a home run in my opinion. And so that is the shoe that I wanted to highlight. So how do you feel about sneakers in 2024 so far? We are halfway through this year. We have halfway to go. Get in touch with the show. @Fire Footwear on Instagram is the handle. I'd love to hear from you. If you follow the show, hit me up with a DM. I'd love to get you as a part of the sneaker group chat that we have. It's just a bunch of people talking sneakers, talking life, and it's been a lot of fun talking to a lot of people, getting to know people. So hit me up there if you want to, I don't know, I guess be a part of a group of other people who like to talk about sneakers. Of course, if you want to support the show on YouTube, search Fire Footwear Sneaker Podcast on YouTube. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, all that good stuff. I try to do different things and present different material on there so that you're getting a different experience on audio, a different experience in video, and you kind of can pick and choose like a menu, the kind of content that you want. I put out some reels on TikTok @Fire Footwear Pod is the handle to do that as well. I have a new voicemail box for people to call in, and the area code is 202-643-9170 is the number. That will be in the show notes if you want to get it again. The whole point of this is for you to call the show, leave a voicemail, whether it's a sneaker story, whether it's something about this show. I want to highlight people who listen to this show. I want to highlight other sneaker folks on this podcast. So call up, leave me a voicemail, and I'd love to highlight it on a future episode. Of course, support the Matty Ice Media Network, mattyicemedia.com for all the other content that we put out. And if you're listening in podcasts, specifically if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, please remember to rate and review the show. I just got a really, really great review from a listener who has been listening for a long time. Makes me happy to know that there are people out there who've been listening a long time and have been silent. I want to thank everybody for tuning in this week, for taking out the time to listen to the show. I hope you have a great 4th of July or had a great 4th of July. And I hope this finds everybody well. Hope this finds everybody safe. And I will talk to everybody next time. This is Fire Footwear. The opinions and viewpoints expressed on Fire Footwear are those of Matt Frates and his guests, and not necessarily those of the Matty Ice Media Network. Fire Footwear is exclusively owned by Matt Frates and is brought to you by the Matty Ice Media Network.